I just don't believe in hand-holding. Like, I'm kind of one of those people, like, I came up grassroots. I grew up poor. The people whose parents put down payments for their first houses, fuck you. I hate you.
Was not me.
Yeah, it was not me. People whose parents paid for their educations, double fuck you.
Yeah,
Like, you know what I mean? All right, so the goal of all of our episodes is to inspire, educate, and connect with others, especially women who aspire to be what we are, or are currently navigating similar paths that we've navigated. I don't know if you know, but in the world, 50% of women are the population, but only 5% of Fortune 500 companies are led by women. Statistically speaking, that seems unfair and not logical, but why is that? And I really wanted to discuss with fellow business owners and fellow leaders on why we chose our path, to maybe understand why there's so few of us doing this. Let's do some intros. I am Bobby Joe. I'm 43 years old. I am a mother of 2. I've been married for 25 years. And I own Eastern Virginia Anesthesia Group that provides anesthesia services, as well as the Injectory, which is aesthetics and wellness. And I have with me today, Lynn. And Lynn, do you want to introduce yourself?
Yes, hi, Lynn Osborne, and been in the hair industry for 30 years this year, and have owned multiple salons. Currently, the 2 that I have been in business for 6 years. One of them has been in the area for over 11 years. And so just an expansion of self, I guess, running salons.
Kristen, do you want to introduce yourself?
Sure. My name is Kristen Cooper. I am 48 years old and single, no children. And I have a background in human resources. I worked for about 25 years in multiple industries, mostly manufacturing, and went out as an entrepreneur about 1.5 years ago, where I lead team workshops that help individuals and teams understand each other better so they can ultimately be more effective.
And how about you, Mickey?
Yeah, my name is Mickey Wright Neely, and I am 38 years old, and I've been married for just under 2 years, and I'm a mother of 2 boys. I myself have been in real estate for the last 10.5 years. Yeah, that's me.
That's you. I love that. What were you doing before that, Mickey?
I was in the cellular industry for 11 years. So I worked for both T-Mobile and Sprint. I also sold cars here in Hampton Roads as well. So I have a background in sales. Let's just say that.
Yeah,
I've sold everything from phones to cars to houses.
Yeah. Well, I feel like those are 3 things that everyone needs to have.
Right.
So you chose
Literally.
the right careers, right?
Yeah.
So it's not only Fortune 500 companies, but only 3% of all U.S. businesses are owned by women. And even fewer break the $1 million revenue mark. So I kind of wanted to look into, again, why women are struggling or choosing to not lead, not open businesses, not, be as successful, again, statistically speaking. The reality of women in leadership, is it a gender gap issue? And I want to kind of talk about that in the sense of, is it a gap because we're still transitioning to that balance of what women's roles are in society, right? So for example, you get married, you have kids, your husband takes care of you. Like, that was once a reality. And for some people that still may be their reality. But I don't think it ever has been that case for men, right? Men are like, I'm going to get married and my wife's going to take care of me, right? Can you imagine? I know that in healthcare, I know of many doctors who meet their wives in medical school. And oftentimes those women don't work full time. And part of it is because of the demands of their husband's job, but also of being a mother. So what do you think, especially being with the youngest children, Mickey, what is your thoughts like on how choosing to marry and have children and also being in sales and running a business in real estate, how has that married?
I think that I am actually in a unique position when it comes to the career that I chose and the ages of my children. They are 4 and 9 years old. And the thing that's unique about it is I'm a one-woman show, essentially, right? I run my business. I am a business. I am all the parts of the business. So I do get the luxury of choosing my schedule, choosing what days I work. And now that I am 10 and a half years in, I got really good at setting those boundaries, because in the beginning, when you're just getting started and you have no clients and you're literally trying to sell a house to everybody, you don't have boundaries, but you always should, whether it's your first day or it is your 10th year. So for me, setting the boundaries, knowing what I want my work to look like, what I want my home life to look like, has made it a lot easier for me to, one, grow my business, get the respect from potential clients. Respecting those boundaries is a thing, right? You could set them, but they'd be like, well, no, I need to talk to you right now. But because I set it up front, I'm very transparent with the way I run my business. It's made it a lot easier to manage that. Now, on the flip side, it's also so stressful because I am the mom that does not have to clock in. So I'm home on the sick days. I'm doing the field trips. I'm picking up early from school. I'm doing all the things. And I'm in a co-parenting relationship as well. So both of my son's fathers have jobs where they have to clock in, and I just don't. So it's very freeing and also can be very, very kind of constricting at the same time. And I really just do my best to find the balance, but I make it work. And I think that my job is unique in that way.
Yeah, but that is lucky. I mean, and I will say, I wanted to like applaud when you're like, have those boundaries from day 1 to day 10, because I still, I've been doing anesthesia for 15 years, but I've owned my anesthesia business since 2019. So that's 6 years, and my aesthetic business for 4 years. And I don't boundaries.
What are those?
What are those? Largely because my work-life balance is more like, my kids love to be like, Mom, get off the phone, get off the phone.
Oof.
Like, so frustrated with me. My husband too. Like, he's like, walk in the house, you're on your phone, you know? So it's a struggle. So I do applaud you for that. And I definitely can feel that way in a lot of ways myself. How about you, Lynn? I mean, you've been doing this 30 years married.
Yes. 30 years, had kids, you know, the whole time I was building my career across the country, supported my husband in his military career. And then as well as when he went private sector, he was traveling globally. And I felt you when you said about, you know, the sick days. Thankfully, I had a partner that would try to meet me part way, considering that he had sick days, PTO, so on and so forth. And in my business, if you're not there producing, you're not making money. And so it was very, very hard understanding the boundaries. And I definitely wasn't taught that. I was taught how to be a great hairdresser and get out there and do the things from wonderful mentors through the years. And especially living across the country, all different types of areas, different thoughts and processes. But it was probably one of the hardest things was how many times I thought about leaving this career, right? For the betterment of the family, for the betterment of this, and losing myself potentially and being sacrificial. And that was probably one of the hardest things. And fast forward all these years later, I kind of feel like at the age of 49, I'm like, live in a whole different way. I'm so proud of what I've done for me at the age of 49, with so many of those years being in this one industry, and seeing how, even in conversations with my spouse, very respectfully, that, you know, your career has changed in many faces, but my career has stayed the same. And even right down to my hours for the most part, I might pivot some days during seasons because of the clientele's needs with their kids being off. Maybe they were teachers, so on and so forth, right? But for me, it was really realizing that I actually was a pillar to be reckoned with, if you would, within the household. And I never was taught that and given credit for that to myself. Clients were giving it to me. They were observing and atta-girling me, but I didn't even know how to own that.
I will say that, so just as background, I actually married my husband young, but I always had like my eyes set. Like, he was always kind of here, like, and he supported me in a lot of ways. So I'm actually the breadwinner in our relationship. My husband has a government job. So like he's going to take care of us in retirement with his pension. But he has way more flexibility. He's IT, so he can work from home, but he gets frustrated because it's the same thing. why do I always have to like be home, or why do I always have to like it's always the why do I like. And one time he did say, you think your job's more important than mine, but it's actually not the case. Obviously that's out of frustration, but it was more that if I don't show up to give anesthesia, not only do I not get paid, especially now that I practice independently, but also in cases like those are patients who have no anesthesia provider now. Who's going to step in and do it? So that can affect my surgeons, the staff, and the patients. So I've always felt that I had to show up, not just to pay the bills, but because I had that burden, of, more than my family to support. But I definitely I feel that like about having your ownership. So again, I was career oriented. We almost didn't have kids because I was like, kids, I don't know if I need that. I will say it's the best thing I ever did for myself. My kids are amazing. I'm thankful for them every single day. However, I cried the first 3 days I went back to work. And then the third day I was like, wait, this is easier. Going to work is easier than being at home with my kids. But also I felt like, not just like a sense of relief, because that definitely is a feeling you get, but like a sense of, gosh, this is so good for my soul. It's good for my brain, like having adult conversations. And I applaud the people who stay home with their kids, because I'm like, I tried to teach my kids the alphabet and I like flipped out and like had to leave because I showed them what an A was and they didn't seem to know what it was. So I was like, I can't do this. So God bless teachers also. The parents who homeschool, stay home with their kids. I always feel like I lack patience, like for my children or children in general. But children kind of expose these things in yourselves. So I think that kind of makes you, in a leadership role, you are watching yourself through your children's eyes. They mimic you, they repeat you. There's so much that you get from your kids, which I think is great for leadership. And so how about you, Kristen? I feel like we're talking about undertaking these roles. You've actually made different choices in life. You've chosen not to get married, not to have kids. How does that feel? Like, do you get the questions?
Yeah, of course. Well, and I will start saying it's not always a choice. Right. So there are lots of circumstances, whether it be timing, focus, whatever it might be. So
the right person.
The right person, exactly. Yeah. So, I would say for me, it's almost different challenges, different benefits and different challenges. So for me, in terms of managing my career, I've only had to worry about myself. So I will say that has helped me in context of being able to make the moves that I want to make without consideration for a family or children or another spouse. So that has been something that I've found beneficial in terms to be able to progress in my career, because in order to progress, you need to be able to change and make moves. Right. Whether it be geographically, potentially. Yeah. I work for a company that expected people to move every 2 to 3 years if you wanted to progress. And that's, I was able to do that. So that was very beneficial. Yeah.
But who's making dinner when you come home exhausted and tired?
Exactly. Hopefully the crock pot that I put on, But there's that, right? So you also have to do it all. So I've got to manage my own home. I've got to manage all of, whether it be the handy people coming over or, all the things. You got to pay the bills. And I would say that, from a different challenge perspective, in terms of going into entrepreneurship, which started my own business 1.5 years ago, it's a little scary because of the context of I don't have someone else stream of income coming in to pay the bills, if something were to happen. Or so you have to do a lot more planning so that you can be prepared, because I'm sure, as all of you guys know, as being entrepreneurs, it's up and down, and especially when you're starting out, right? So you've really got to work on that and be prepared to be able to kind of feel those ups and downs.
Yeah, I would say I was actually doing anesthesia during COVID, but all elective cases were canceled, and my anesthesia company provides anesthesia for elective cases. So 6 weeks, no income, right? And thank God I had my husband, who literally is salaried. So he can work from home, again, being IT, he's guaranteed to get paid, So, our bills were being covered. But I think about so many small businesses that were affected by COVID because you're not making the income. And if you don't have that support, my sister went into entrepreneurship, but she's not married, and she didn't really have a nest egg or anything established. So her every success of her business, she feels, and every failure of the business, she feels. So there's been a lot of struggles, and I I feel in some ways that I inspired her, but I also keep reminding her, like, I had my husband, like I had my other job. I had like things supporting it. The injectory is successful because of my anesthesia business. I jokingly, Sierra said to me today, she's like, Bobby Joe, open up a nonprofit. And I was like, I'm running a nonprofit.
That's true. It's all in how you look at
You
it.
seem to forget that this is like a constant investment. So, but yeah, I mean, I definitely can imagine that not having that support system, like we at least have that. Now, keep in mind that our support systems are sometimes our biggest naysayers. My husband's I call him like very like pessimistic.
Yeah.
But he calls it a realist. So sometimes, like when I went into anesthesia for myself, he just wanted the guaranteed income. He just wanted me to like go to work and come home. And honestly, for me, and maybe this is why you went on your own, I was so tired of going to work, providing anesthesia, doing all the work, and getting zero credit. I felt like I was like doing all the hunting and all the killing and not getting to eat it, you know?
Yeah.
And if you guys don't know, a lot of anesthesia providers work with anesthesiologists, and we're the ones in the OR who, like, patients are trying to die, we're like sweating bullets, like hanging blood, like trying to keep them alive, while the anesthesiologist is, you know, buying golf clubs and, you know, trading stocks. I don't care who you are, you know it's damn true. If you call them, they'll come in, and sometimes they leave. I mean, they're like, you got this, bye. But in general, it was just very frustrating, I think, because I felt like I wasn't getting the kudos. The last year I was with my company that I worked for, I had 12 request cases. The request cases where somebody's having surgery and somebody knows you and asks you to do their anesthesia, whether it's their loved one or they're for themselves. Because I was well respected in my career, but at the same time, I was getting no respect from the company I worked for. And thankfully, I made a relationship with the physician that I worked for. And now I work for him, but now I'm his bitch. So there's there's that. And in some ways, you know, it's good and bad. I'm thankful for it. But the burdens of those companies are a lot, and these roles as women are a lot. What type of challenges, if you guys had to pick like one thing, do you feel like has been the biggest barrier for you in your industries? Anyone?
If you're talking about like the now, honestly, for me, the toughest thing is really in my workspace, particularly, we're dealing with 5 generations of different types of communication. And so from the service sect, you might be dealing with 70, 80-year-old and maybe even 90 if you're blessed, clients coming in to get serviced. And then you've got their generation that's taking care of them, their children. And then you might have staff that was born last week. So, or so it feels like it. And so how do you bridge the gap? And so that's something that me and my management team just went to a program back in Miami in the fall to really understand. And it was really aimed at our industry. And that has definitely helped, but that doesn't always put the hand on my shoulder and the other hand over my mouth as a leader on how to handle moment-to-moment situations. It is probably one of the toughest things right now as a leader, I feel, is trying to gap and to understand how to communicate up, down, sideways, left ways, and still save yourself in the process. That's just probably one of the toughest things. I can do hair all day long.
Yeah, the interpersonal relationships, I would say for sure.
Yes.
This is where, so Kristen provides a service that has to do with like personalities. The thing is that I will say that my husband, I read his, and I remember reflecting this with you. So evidently there's work Mark and there's home Mark, because work Mark is not that person at home, I promise you. So in some ways I do think like there's some variability because it really is a reflection of work relationships. In a lot of ways, we did provide it to my staff, but there are things that came up with one of the first staff that left, was some of the personalities. Like, is there possible that someone could fake these tests? Because I didn't really understand everything. And then since then, I still stand by it, and I can't wait to do it with a few more new staff that we have, because I do still think it benefited my company. I still believe in supporting my staff. I still believe in team building. But the reality is there are things about people that even if you understand where they come from their personality range, that you're never going to overcome. And so in a lot of ways that can be troublesome. Gender, dealing with men seem to be chill for the most part, and women less so. But that's not always the case, right? We've all met, like, some men are the wimpiest people, I swear to you. I promise you, from an anesthesia standpoint. And then, of course, you're talking about generations. Like, I had some conversations with my staff. 60% of 2024 graduates have actually been fired or let go from their jobs. And it comes from, and again, what is that generationally? What is it that they're, so it's, and from it was a Forbes article that I read. It has to do with understanding, like, the general idea of business and business relationships and what your role is when you work for somebody. And I would say that falls into, like, some of the problems that I've had as an owner, as a leader. And I do love that you bring that up, that we could go on and on about interpersonal relationships, because you can be the best leader. You can think you're doing all the right things. I'm actually very much like a self-governed kind of leadership. Like, I'm like, you're a professional. You know what's expected of you. You do you, boo. And if you need help, I'm here for you. You know what I mean? I just don't believe in hand-holding. Like, I'm kind of one of those people, like, I came up grassroots. I grew up poor. My mother hates when I say that. I grew up paycheck to paycheck.
Humble.
Yeah. Humble beginnings.
Yeah, exactly. And nobody handed it to me. Like, the people whose parents put down payments for their first houses, fuck you. I hate you.
Was not me.
Yeah, exactly. It was not me. People whose parents paid for their educations, double fuck you.
Yeah.
Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I mean, I don't. I mean, God bless you. And honestly, I hope that I can provide that for my children.
Correct.
I do.
Yeah.
I want to be able to do those things for my children. But, it's not those moments where I think, if I was just 10 grand ahead, or if I had just had my education paid for, where I would be, if, it took me 10 years to pay off my student loans, where would I be if I didn't have to pay that,
Mm-hmm.
So I guess, like, besides interpersonal relationships, what I think we can kind of evolve on more here shortly, what type of, what have been your barriers for you, Kristen, in your career?
Yeah, I think, just becoming an entrepreneur, starting your new, or a business in general, I think it's been really just getting comfortable with rejection. Probably something I didn't fully anticipate when I first started, was in realizing that, getting the no's is okay. It just means that you're going after it. Mm-hmm. And so, not being afraid to get those types of rejections, that you just got to keep going and keep hustling. And
somebody once said to me, it's not no, it's not right now.
Yeah.
And I will tell you that is something, like,
That's huge.
like, don't be like, no is negative. Like, that means not right now, or not you right now.
Mm-hmm.
There might be somebody else. So you're right. Mm-hmm. It's more about, and I think as leaders, and as well as, like, business owners, if you aren't constantly be like, next, like, if you're getting caught up in the interpersonal relationships, the no's, the rejection, like, you're sitting still.
You're gonna, and you could get locked up in that fear. And that's what I've really had to be like, no, like, someone gave me some great advice, which is get addicted to the no's. Which great. Was like, just keep going after it. And eventually, whether it be, it'll turn into a yes, or,
it's a numbers game.
It's a numbers game. Or make yourself memorable enough that when they do need you, they remember you.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's,
I like to think I'm pretty memorable. Not always in the best way, but
that's definitely how I feel. My biggest barrier was, I've been doing this for 10 and a half years, but it was only in 2020 that it really took off. Okay. Prior to that, I was selling like 2 houses a year, if that, 1 to 2 houses a year.
Wow.
I had to maintain my 9 to 5. I became a single mom when my oldest was 1.5, by choice. And I had no family here. I had no friends here. So it was just me. And I can just remember every weekend when he would go to his dad's, I would just go to Wawa and buy either a pack of Oreos or a pack of Edam's cookies. And I just sat and I ate and I ate and I ate. And I'm like, okay, well, what do I do, like, to grow my business? And I saw something online or somewhere one day that just said that happiness is a choice. And I'm like, well, that's ridiculous. And I was like, wait a minute.
It's just that easy.
I'm like, wait, technically speaking, and I'm like that person. That's the ADHD part, which I found out I had at 36 years old. So it's just been over 2 years.
Samesies.
Yeah. I realized that's an entrepreneur thing I've come to find, right?
Ooh, yeah.
So I'm like, okay, happiness is a choice. Like, what would that look like? And I was just like, okay, I know how feelings work, right? I know how I feel like I'm sad, I'm mad, I'm angry, and I know how I feel I'm happy. So maybe I can just be that. And that was the the turning point in my life for me. And then I got happy. I met my now husband, and it was opposite for me in COVID. I quit my job in 2020 instead because I had that support of him, like, just go ahead and do it. Although I had never sold more than 2 houses. So for me, it's like, okay, now I can't go outside, but I got to grow this business. I was able to pull my youngest out of daycare again because of COVID, didn't know what was going on, quit the job. Then I homeschooled him through kindergarten, through the K-12 program.
God
bless you. While growing my business, could not afford it, but I joined a business mentorship group. And I was like, screw it. Let's just learn from this broker down in Atlanta. And she helped change my career. So the struggle for me was always, well, how do I be me and like attract people to me, right? The young Black girl who does a whole lot of talking, got the long nails and only wear hoop earrings. Like, how do I get y'all to buy a house for me instead of what the norm looks like, which is an older white male in real estate, right? That's what the norm is. So I mimicked a lot. I had a colleague who I would see like that's working for her, and I would just do the exact same thing. Again, not knowing that was an ADHD trait. I didn't know at the time. And she became frustrated, actually said something to me. I'm like, oh God, like, I'm sorry, I didn't know. Let me switch it up. And I switched it up, and it was still kind of the same because I didn't know what to do on my own. And then one day I was like, just screw it. And if you scroll back long enough, you can see when the shift changed in like my online presence. And that was it. The moment I decided to be myself and just talk to my audience and just let go of the imposter syndrome, which I know we're going to touch on later, like that was the biggest thing for me. So it was always like, how are you able to be yourself and attract your tribe? And I found that you literally just do it and they just come to you. Like, that's what worked for me. So that was always the biggest challenge.
I fake it till you make it,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
I actually told my staff today, I literally said to them, I was like, hey y'all, like, it's something Sierra had said. And I was like, Sierra, like, I show up here, I'm acting a fool because that's just, I'm very like kind of silly and like joke around. I guess I think I'm funny. I don't care if other people do. And I was like, I'm not like, I got some shit going down. Like, life isn't always perfect. But I still show up here and I smile and I laugh and I just embrace like the moment, right? Because I'm just faking it till I make it. Like, the reality is, like, I am not focused on the noise. Like, like, that's what I call it. Like, I call fuck the noise, right? Yeah. Because I feel like when I'm worried, like, oh, does she look prettier than me? Yeah. Oh, is she more successful than me? Like, I'm getting too distracted.
It's draining.
Yes.
It's draining.
And so
it is.
When I was coming up through high school, there was this doctor's son, and he was, definitely on the spectrum, like very intelligent. And I remember being like, what was your grade? What was your grade? Like, I feel like I was always competing with him, like, to be like the smartest. He also got like bumped up a grade, and my mom didn't let me get bumped up a grade. She said it was better to be my own grade. Yeah. Whatever, mom. Anyway, but then I started really like, and then like, then you discover like, well, someone's always gonna be smarter than you, right? Then when you're a young girl, right, you're like flirting with the boys, like, and then they're like this other girl, and you're like, I guess some people are prettier than me. Yeah. And the next thing you know, like, you put on some pounds, you eat too many Oreos, and then you realize some people are skinnier than you. Yes. Like, there is always, and I say to my daughters, there's always gonna be somebody better at volleyball, gonna be better at sports, music, and more intelligent, more beautiful, whatever. And if you're always worried about what somebody else is doing, and your focus is on them, then you're not worrying about yourself. You're not worrying about where you're going. Yeah.
And maybe that's part of the reason why we're only 5% of the Fortune 500 companies. Yeah. Because we keep on wondering, well, they can do it because of X, Y, Z, and that's not me, so I couldn't possibly. So I'll just stay in this role. Yeah. Maybe that's part of it.
I think it's more like embracing what's in front of us and or forging ahead, right? And not being held up by these boundaries. Maybe we should say, I don't care that I'm a woman. I don't care that I'm a mother. I don't care that, that I'm Filipino. Yeah. Yeah. Making assumptions, or Black, or, old. Yeah. I mean, I would say that, my color's very white, so.
Mine is very not. Mine is very not. That's Mickey speaking.
Yeah, like, I would actually love to hear that. I took a women's studies in my college.
Me too.
Yeah, and my professor was actually a Jewish lesbian. Okay. Right? How unique, right? And I got the pleasure of reading a lot of books about women's roles, feminism. Like, be honest with you, I always can say that I'm a feminist in a lot of ways. I believe that I'm strong and independent until the trash has to be taken out.
You're not doing it.
And then I'm not doing it. Because I believe like I have to balance it. And I remember, and it always sticks with me, because it talks, of course, in this women's studies, they believe that men, no matter what color, have more advantages than women. And then I always think about women of color because that they were called the bottom of the barrel.
Mm-hmm.
They have the most barriers
Mm-hmm.
because not only are they dealing with our gender, which I truly believe was one of the greatest barriers for,
100%.
and then they're also dealing with some like gender, or I'm sorry, some cultural bias and some ethnical bias.
Yep. Yeah.
Ethical,
Absolutely.
ethnical. What a word?
Ethnicity.
Ethnicity.
Yeah. Racial biases.
Right.
There
Racial.
is,
That's good.
yeah.
Yeah.
So to answer, yes, I agree that it's happening. Again, real estate, we see it in many ways within my business, right? So I can see it from the perspective of a business owner and a realtor, and I can see it from the perspective of a homeowner because they face biases when it comes to valuing their homes. So there's so many different things. The conversation and how it can evolve is simply asking, like, just this question: how do you think the struggle is? Like, what do you think you're struggling with? What change would need to happen for you not to feel like you're facing quite as many barriers? And to be honest, I don't know what that answer is right now because that's just where we are in our country. Mm-hmm. So it goes so far beyond just individual careers and just in general. And then, of course, you get the statistics where you find that we are among the highest educated people in the country as a Black woman. The degrees that we hold, the way that we do take care of families, the things that we are able to figure out coming from the humble beginnings to making 6 figures, 7 figures, et cetera, and I think that it comes down to us just being brave enough to continue to enter these spaces. And for those of us that are white or otherwise who have the advantages, holding open the door for us, knowing that I'm right behind you. And if you don't hold it open for me, it could be another year before you see me walk through that door. Mm-hmm. So in what ways can you just kind of bring us into the conversation, right? You guys have, I'm sure, a million businesswomen that come through, the injectory. However, after just one visit here with my little 12 days of Christmas, you're like, hey, Mickey, do a podcast. I'm like, oh, me? Okay. And it's as simple as that. Now I get to share my story with anyone here who's going to listen, and you did not have to do that. So as simple as just holding the door for the woman of color who is walking behind you, I think is the best start. And that is for men to do so, et cetera. And I have a white husband, and I am very pro-Black, and I have a mixed son, and I have an all-Black son. I am a very well-rounded, I love everybody person, and I accept nothing less from that. So I use my husband. I'm like, we have to have these conversations. I know you have never understood. You have never had to understand. Mm-hmm. This is your life now. So I lean on him. I lean on him to have the conversations with his family, et cetera, because that's not my job, right? I don't have to be your token person where, hey, can you guys sit down? We could talk about this. I don't want to do that, right? I've done my part. I've carried the burden. Just in my day-to-day life, I carried it out.
Yeah.
So I feel that is what I think.
Yeah. Do you ever enter a room and be like, can you just treat me as a human? Or do you want people to recognize, like,
so I have my own set of privilege that I'm very well aware of. I have what we like to refer to as light skin privilege. I will be way more accepted in a room than my darker counterpart. And that was part of the friend that I said I was copying. Yeah. She brought that to my attention. She said, Mickey, I'm going to be very frank. Us doing the same thing, it's going to go better for you because of how you look. And I was just like, oh my gosh. And I instantly took that in. And although I don't want to believe that, I am not naive enough to think that that's not true because I know I've seen it with my own friends who are darker than me, et cetera. I know that most of the Black women you see on TV and in movies, they look like me. They are light skinned, they have the nice hair, they are passing, etc. So when I walk into a room, I want you to know that I'm there because I've earned my spot to be there. I don't need you to look at me as a Black woman, but you do need to acknowledge that I do have a color. And I'm not a fan of people saying that there is no color, I don't see color. Well, then you're colorblind because right. I am a different color. You don't need to say that to embrace me. You need to say, no, you are my Black friend. And I understand that you may go through things that I never could possibly understand and simply acknowledge it. You don't have to give me preferential treatment or anything like that. But if I've earned my spot, you just want to be comfortable knowing that it won't be taken from you because of that, right? Yeah. And it's difficult. You never know when it's happening, really. Like, in what circumstance did it affect me or did it not affect me? I really don't have a way
Right,
of knowing.
right.
And that's like a frustration.
You're right, because the truth is you can't control other people.
Yeah.
You can only control yourself, the way you react to those people. It comes back to there's noise, and you can either wallow in it and focus on it, or you can forge ahead and be like, accept me for who I am. I sit in an OR, which is predominantly males that are anesthesiologists overseeing me, and males who are performing surgery. One of my favorite riddles goes, son and his father were in a car accident, and the father dies, and the son is rushed to the hospital. And when he arrives, he's rushed back to surgery, and the surgeon says, I can't perform this surgery. This is my son. How is that possible?
Oh, and no one can figure it out.
And no one can figure it out,
Mom is the
including-
doctor. I just got chills.
The mom
Oh my
is
gosh.
the doctor.
Yeah.
Oh,
I remember the
yes.
first time, and I was confused.
Yeah.
I was younger.
How old were you when
I
you
literally
heard
just got
that?
chills.
Yeah.
For the first time.
I remember that. And I was
Why-
just like,
How?
how?
Got a
Yeah,
timestamp.
but also it's a
Yeah.
moment, even as you, like, again, I consider myself a feminist, and I heard this, and that was not my first thought. My
Yeah.
first thought wasn't actually, it was like, are they gay?
Right.
Like, that was actually my first thought. Like, is it a dad on dad son like relationship?
The woman, it took a while for it to be like,
Oh, it's
I
a
don't-
woman.
Did he not die?
Really
Like, I
don't
don't get it.
know.
Y'all said he died. I don't understand.
Yeah.
And that's
Yeah.
what's going to the unconscious bias, right? So we
Yes.
talk about, and that unconscious bias, just because you're a woman doesn't mean that you can't have biases towards women.
Yes.
Oh,
And I think that's
absolutely.
one of the most
Yes.
dangerous things, because a lot of people think because I'm, female that, I don't have those biases towards female.
Well, we
But
have to understand that our brains want to be affirmed in our thoughts. We want to be right. Our brains thirst to be right. And so people love, like, if they're feeling a way and somebody validates that feeling,
Yeah.
you could literally be like, I feel like the sky is purple, right? And then if she's like, you know what, I think it looks purple too. You're like,
Yes,
it is, it's purple.
yes.
The sky is purple. I knew it. Like, and that can happen with the interpersonal relationships.
Yeah.
All it takes is one employee to be like, she's greedy. She's making $1 million. She's paying me nothing.
Yeah.
You know, you can do like me and just pull out those P&Ls and be like, lies. But I think that unconscious bias, again, we have that way that we believe and we want to affirm for sure. Yeah.
And sometimes we don't even know it though.
No,
That's the
exactly.
that's the
Yeah.
the crazy.
Yeah, I think
part.
it's having these kind of a conversation because
Absolutely.
so I'm from New York and I grew up in
Okay.
a region that's a bit different, and like the way that I would say that I knew that someone was black,
Okay.
but like they were just like somebody else on the street, like because pretty rural areas that we lived in. You know how many black families there are,
Right.
but you don't. It's not like I didn't think anything differently. My husband likes to say the first boob he ever touched was a black girl's boob. So, God bless him. I know. He
Well,
had
you
the
lucked
biggest
out that
crush
yours
on
are definitely
her.
not because you know what they say.
Yeah. He had the biggest crush on her.
Oh,
but I was actually going
goodness.
to say, Vicky, you also have pretty privilege because
Yes.
you're beautiful.
Yes.
You're gorgeous.
Thank you.
And so they joke about that not being a thing, but there
Oh,
are
it's
studies.
absolutely a
Oh,
thing.
It's a thing.
Oh,
yeah.
it's
And
very
let's
much a
not
thing.
pretend that not all of us have
And
not
we use it
played
to our
that part.
advantage,
Oh,
and yeah, without meaning to. Again, that subconscious. Well, I just know that I can put myself out there, and they're probably going to tell me yes.
Yeah.
And again, it's because you never know if you're going to get a no or whatnot. But like, you might as well. They say that I got it, so let's see what it does for me. Okay, but then I will hold the door open for the person behind me instead. Right? If you held it open for me, I can now hold it open for her who maybe doesn't have the pretty privilege or the light skin privilege or whatever privilege they might have that we are benefiting from. I always plan to use the things at my disposal to help others. That's just key for me.
Yeah. I think it's fun to surprise people,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah,
like, so I
for
would say
sure.
that, I wear masks and I have like to the surgeons, like, how are you? Right? And then like they ask you a question and you're like, you actually speak intelligently.
Yeah.
And I think people are kind of like, wait,
Taken aback.
she ain't stupid?
For sure.
So
Mhm.
Yeah.
what about you? So like, again, military wife,
Yeah.
you are in a largely Filipino area. There
Right.
is a huge, we call it the Filipino mafia.
Yeah.
Love
it.
In healthcare, there are a lot of Filipino
Yeah,
nurses. Oh my God.
absolutely. Yeah. I mean, Joe Coy is a hit for a reason. Okay.
God, he's so
I mean,
funny.
he nailed it. Okay. He knows. But again, he used that, right,
Yeah.
to his advantage to make it a talk topic.
Mm-hmm.
And I love that you said that, a spin I heard on, one of the Netflix, I won't even say what kind of realty, thing. But it was a
One of
talk
those
about
shows.
the bringing it to the table. Listen, if I invite you to my table,
Yeah.
don't argue about which seat. Just show up at
Yeah.
the table.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I love that because it really is just like, I see you.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we met through yoga.
Yeah.
And, you know, and probably we were going to yoga to try to be more yoga-like, be more of a yogi in
more
spirit,
zen,
you
more
know, a
yogi.
little more,
Yeah.
you know, I would tell my daughter when she worked at the studio, there was only two types of people that went to the studio. People who were living it and people who were trying to,
Mm-hmm.
you know,
Yeah.
Yep.
and so don't try to judge or
Yeah.
don't judge when they make it easy for you to judge
Yes.
why they're there.
Yeah.
Just embrace them as best you can.
Yeah.
And so for me, you know, I was so confused growing up, you know, with leadership. My mother being first generation Filipino that came here, fresh off the boat, if you would.
Okay.
And then my father being very strict military, he did not want her to associate, but so much with the way that he was actually attracted to her, which was being an islander, right? So it was kind of like, okay, drop that as we crossed over the ocean and come over here. And so a lot of my plight has been first generational, being raised here and not knowing how to assimilate to any one thing. You said you're from
Yeah.
Pennsylvania. My father's coal mining lineage.
Okay.
While he was not a coal miner, he picked up and left and joined the military. I was raised knowing and hearing of that heritage.
Okay.
Very groundbreaking of the United States, people who settled here, right?
Yeah.
From over in Europe and
Yeah, they
and,
helped build
and
America.
they
Mhm.
built America, right?
Yeah.
And yet my father left
Right.
and went across and traveled and saw horrible things during the military, you know, conflicts. And yet I'm so thankful because he merged the world together with their differences were actually what brought them together.
Okay.
Because both came from nothing,
Mm-hmm.
just completely different worlds, you know, but their heartaches, their pains, and then being brought up in that, and then marrying. I married into that lifestyle, and it's almost when you go into the military, I always say there's this level of every 2 to 4 years dysfunction, where you feel compelled to spin things up.
Yeah.
It sets in you, and from a psychology perspective, when you look back at those Psych 101 classes, you go, I see it.
Yeah.
I see why I'm screwed
Yeah.
up.
Psych 101, I feel like sticks with everybody. I'll never forget
We
my
all are
psych
in our
classes.
ways.
Yeah. And then you add the fact that my mom was always a hustler.
Okay.
She was hustling from the day she probably came out of the womb there in the Philippines. But she was a on and off again working mother. And I modeled that. So when we were talking earlier about, like, I can't relate to that stay home thing,
Mm-hmm.
then I went into that place of, oh my gosh, guilt. What kind of a monster am I?
Right.
To not, because you associate that with love. And no, actually, I loved my child more and my spouse to actually exit out of the home front.
Yeah.
And that takes guts,
It does.
right? Because whether you do it or don't, you're going to be judged.
Yeah.
Especially,
By
you know,
other
my
women.
20 years ago
By other
when
women,
my kids
mostly.
were
Yeah.
little.
Oh my
Women
goodness.
are
Yeah.
awful to each
Judgy.
other.
Yeah,
Mhm.
and I've seen it in my own workspace
Yeah.
where I've had hairdressers, single moms, whatever your circumstances may be, go toe to toe, and I'm like, this is not right.
Yeah.
Why are you? Well, you have somebody to lean on. No. You don't know, like you said, P&L. You don't know our finances. You don't know our emotional quotient
Right.
to know.
The
Yeah,
emotional
gambling
quota.
problem.
Oh my
Yeah, right.
goodness.
And
Yes.
Yeah.
and how we do that to each other.
Mhm.
And my husband says, you know, God, he was so thankful he was born a man. Well, so am I. You know, so are my kids.
Yeah.
You know, but how do you also now pass this down?
Yeah.
You know, through mentorship, leadership in the workspace,
Mhm.
right? We all come with different experiences from our childhood. Biases. That's my big word this year is learning all the different social biases all over again,
Man.
and realizing that we take that day to day, regardless of what we experience from childhood or it's just social factor.
Yeah.
You know?
Well, there's shortcuts. Our brain is wired to make shortcuts so
Yeah.
that we can be effective.
We stored them.
Yeah.
That's a
Yeah.
good point. Yeah.
And so,
Depends
and
what the
sometimes it
bias
serves
is
us
in.
well,
Yeah.
And sometimes,
but sometimes it doesn't.
yeah,
Yeah.
you know,
Well, women are not great to each other.
no.
And so again, I had two sisters, my mother. My whole family seems to only make women, so I don't know what that's about. I always say we have like a very acidic uterus or something, like genetically. But I never really looked at like other women's competition, and I'm not kidding you. I generally don't look at a woman. I usually look at a woman and go, oh my God, you're so smart. Oh my God, you're so beautiful. Oh my God, like what are you doing? Like I want, like, even when people like do shitty things, I'm like Googling like why? Like I'm trying to understand why, because I want to understand, like, again, where like people's personal trauma, like it does come into relationships, whether it's work or not. Us as leaders and owners, it's very difficult to navigate because I don't have the capacity, again, having ADHD, I'm very much like task oriented.
Okay.
So I will often task somebody and then they do the task and then we move on. And I have a difficulty stopping and like being like, you did such a great job. You're so amazing. People need that. And unfortunately, I'm like, next.
But it's exhausting because I don't know how you need to be stroked and I don't know how you need to be stroked. And even if I did, that's exhausting.
And it doesn't mean that just because you need it, I have the capacity to give it to you, but I can always do the best that I can. I feel like what you're touching on is we get the whys because I feel like I'm a very self-aware person. And I have people tell me that I'm a very self-aware person because I will be the first person to call myself out, because I don't know if it's because I'm always analyzing myself, not to critique myself, but because I fully believe in no one can ever be the best that they can be unless you're always trying to get better. I love therapy because I want to continue to get better. I'm curious about why I'm this way. So let's talk about it. Not that it's some awful place to be, right? So I feel like when we're Googling the whys, why did this person do that? It's because they lack the self-awareness that we have. Therefore, they're just acting based on what maybe that person is doing or that person is doing. And that becomes, again, problematic when you're trying to run a business or manage people, et cetera. I can tell you a million times to do something the right way. And you're going to be like, okay. Because if you're not self-aware, there's something else that's maybe causing you to not do X, Y, Z. I can tell you a million times that this isn't going to work for us as a client, et cetera. If you don't have self-awareness, it is not going to make a difference.
But 93% of people think they're self-aware,
which
and only
is
like
insane.
28%
Oh
are.
my
So
really?
many people think they are. I mean, the studies show it.
Well, what's funny is that, it was actually one of my visits years ago at your salon. So I have never looked at myself as like a beautiful person. I always say like, I'm girl next door. Like, I mean, I don't think any man's gonna kick me out of their bed, but I don't stop traffic. Like, I'm not stopping traffic, okay? Let's be honest. But,
Give yourself credit.
yeah,
Come on.
Says who? We got a lot of traffic here at Hampton Roads. You're stopping something, okay?
64 accents.
Hello.
I just stepped out of the car. No, I was at her salon, and again, I do not know at what point your client saw me. But keep in mind, you go to the salon, like you pull your hair out of your ponytail, you know, she's putting the foils in, you go over to the basin, now you're drenched wrapped.
Yeah, that's express. Shirt's wet, everything's wet.
But so I am literally getting my hair blown dry at this point. So I am not looking good up to this point. And like, I'm getting there. And she walks over and she goes, oh, my client. She saw you from across the room and she's like, oh my God, isn't she so beautiful? And I was like, Katie, my hairdresser? She's like, no, you. And I was like, what? I was so confused. It still sticks to me because it was that moment where I was like, wait, do people see me differently than I see myself? And what exactly was I doing? And like, I remember you and Katie were being like, it's the way you walk.
I think it's just this air, this lightness, you know, that you just presented in that space. It was just
in that
this
one moment. Is that
and
just a brief time?
like in a good way, you know, and maybe
yeah.
that person who happened to say it was more uptight. Maybe she was just more, you know, and so seeing that was attractive. You know, it's like that thing that we pick out of ourselves, right? That it's the opposite sometimes that we think we want to be. But I think, and then the hard thing is learning to say thank you. Right?
Yeah.
Just say thank you.
Just say thank you. Just
say thank
made
you.
it
Nothing
awkward.
else. Yes.
That was like one of the hardest things that I had to take in probably within the last decade of my life. Was
just accept
would
the
you
compliment.
just
Just say thank you.
But everybody
Now I have to convince you of why I said what I said, and this is
I
weird.
feel really awkward.
I just was sharing something with you.
and everyone loves to be seen for who they are,
Yeah.
right? And you know, seen for something unique for who you are, and that just it made you that stuck with you.
It's hard
and
to
I
hear it though.
I think I started. It really was like an aha moment for me, where I started realizing that, like you said, there's something that someone can see something attractive in you, or something that's enviable in you and you don't even know it.
Yeah.
And again, say thank you, but it comes to that point where that's kind of like the imposter syndrome. Right?
Yeah.
Like we can talk about that a little bit. In some ways, I don't feel like I've always had it. Now that I'm older, when I was younger, I kept waiting for someone to figure out I wasn't as smart as I thought I was. I can't tell you like how often I felt like I was like getting way more credit than I deserved. I also hated it when people were like, "Oh, you're just so smart." I worked my ass off. I studied like crazy. Don't just say that I'm just smart, because again, it's like there are barriers for me as well, and my barriers don't mean that I'm any less special or any less important. It's just a different one, right? So,
absolutely.
I mean, like you have to stop and say, okay, this is what I know about myself.
Yeah.
This is where I have weaknesses that I need to strengthen. This is where I have strengths. And it's okay if someone says you're smart. Be like, thank you. I definitely have been blessed with some intelligence, but I never took it for granted. I worked hard. It's okay to say both.
Yeah.
It's okay to be like, thank you, but.
Yeah.
I at least think it's okay to like maybe make people aware. Like, don't just be like, well, you're pretty. Like, it's like, well, this hair I didn't wake up like this. Like, you know what I mean? Like, this skin I'm taking care of. You know, like there's things that I've done to be this way. You know?
Absolutely.
I think that's a big thing with coming to being the CEOs and the head of these companies, is that I would also like to just be in this room and do my job and not have to say thank you because you feel the need to talk about anything that I have going on physically at all.
Yeah.
Like that's a struggle as well. One that I'm sure we all face. I face it a lot. You may not as much because you guys are women. I deal with all types of different people. So I get that, awkward home inspector, awkward contractor, feels the need to say something here, feels the need to say something here. So it's like, okay, no matter how high I move up, you still have to remind me that I'm a woman and I have a nice rack. Like, okay, and oh, you should smile more. Okay, you should do this and you should do that. And I feel like that also maybe the avoidance of like, hey, well, I've made it right here and that's good enough because I don't have to be in this room with all these people to just highlight every little thing about me, because it does feel like it starts to take away from the work that you've done, because I have to stop now and thanks. Okay. Yes, I got it from here. I got it from there. Like, it's a lot sometimes. And I feel like that could definitely be part of the hesitance that women maybe face when choosing whether or not to move up or kind of stay where they are, because it's just enough. I can stay under the radar without having to be in the spotlight, because our spotlight just is not the same as a man. They're getting kudos for all the work that they've done and all the things that got them there. And that's not the first thing that you might think of when you're talking to us about that.
Even females look at their male leaders differently than they look at their female leaders. They often think that, so as women leaders, we have to be both strong, but soft. But a man's never expected to be both.
Yeah.
He's just a man. And he got there from his own kudos.
Yeah.
Where how many times have you heard that she slept her way there?
Oh my gosh. I wish somebody would.
Oh, yeah. Oh, she's pretty.
She's pretty.
Yeah. Or she was given
she's
that.
something nice to look at.
How do you be relatable, but also professional?
Yeah.
Right. It's a struggle, and it's an unfair one that we should not have to deal with.
Yeah.
And we catch ourselves. I mean, I catch myself even just, we talked about unconscious bias earlier around the fact when you're interacting with people and catching yourself saying, oh, I just don't like her. Well, why? Why don't you like, is it because she's not demonstrating traditional female traits that so we can also fall into those same
100%.
pitfalls, which I've caught my own self doing it. Unfortunately, but it's part of that awareness by becoming aware.
To be human nature, we're conditioned. It's shoved down our throats. It's hard to block it all out. It's like some of it seeps through, and again, acknowledging and be like, oh, I didn't have to say. Oh, I've become the queen of like typing something black. Nope, don't need to say it. I said it. It's there. I can look at it. I don't have to post it. I don't have to say it. I don't have to comment. I will scroll. And if I don't like it, if you have nothing nice to say,
just walk away.
Don't say anything at all.
Also, I have a tendency to have this like really strict moral compass, and I expect everyone else to have that moral compass.
Yeah.
I think that moral compass can be the expectations that we set on ourselves and then place on other people can be negative, can hurt people, especially as leaders. Because if I learn something like really quick and then I show somebody and they didn't learn it, and then I show them again, they didn't learn it.
Gosh.
And then I'm like, I don't I don't know.
I don't know what to do.
I don't know what to
I
do.
cannot help you.
I don't speak this
I told you
language.
3 times.
I don't know how to do this.
Yeah, it's those moments that make you realize like I have to work for myself. It was very much like me being at Sprint and saying like, hey, nobody can shadow me. No, I'm telling you no. Mickey, no, that's your job. It's not mine. I'm not a manager. I'm here to do my job. Just do what's necessary. Just speak your mind. I'm big on that. But the whole like, don't be too harsh. Like, don't be too soft. Where's the balance? I've had people who I've known for years, like one of my very first brokers. So he's known me my entire real estate career. He's one of my go-to contractors, and they just put a roof on my house, a whole bunch of other stuff. And I was calling because they didn't do a great job, and I'm very much not paying for anything until that's done. So I'm just like, hey, yeah, so X, this, and I'm simply explaining it to him. But I don't giggle a lot when I'm talking business. I'm just speaking to you. He's like, oh, Mickey, don't be so aggressive. I was like, whoa, no, Mickey's not being aggressive. You will know if I was. I'm simply stating that this needs to be redone. And it's just that you can't have a firm tone. You can't not giggle and stroke a male ego and not come off as too harsh. And it's very much just like, why is that such a problem for you? It's very strange.
Yeah, when we did the discoveries.
Insights discovery, yeah.
Insights discoveries. It's basically like a personality test.
Okay.
And I was convinced I was blue because in
I've
the
never
OR
heard of
I
this
have to be like
test.
very chill and I have to be like calm and like logical. Like that's the things I am. And so I was like, you know, I was dreading being red, and red is a boss. Like we're
Okay.
very direct. We're fast. We don't have patience for people.
Be bright, be brief, be gone.
There you go.
Ooh.
Be bright. That's actually how they describe reds. Lo and
Okay.
behold, they give you 2 versions under this test. There's the conscious version of you, which means that you know. So you're just talking about giggling.
Yeah.
My go-to is when I say something harsh, I'm like, bum.
Oh, yeah. And text, it's always the LOL afterwards. I made a
always,
point to stop doing that.
So I always up my yellow to make my
Red softer.
straightforwardness. A little more softer and more receptive. I also still think I'm funny, but you know, I feel like they can be both. Stop it, Paula.
No, not funny.
I am funny. I was like, stop calling me pretty. I'm funny.
I'd rather make
My
you laugh.
tombstone.
Right.
She was funny.
Guess we can finally tell her
Yeah,
that she made us
exactly.
laugh.
But lo and behold, I consciously raise my yellow and my blue. And blue, I do think is from doing anesthesia. You
Okay.
learn that your energy gets picked up in the OR. So like if you're freaking the fuck out,
Yeah.
everyone else is useless to you. And you need to
Okay.
get through these very high energy, high stressful situations. And the best way to do it is to speak very slowly, very clearly,
Mhm.
direct people, don't panic. So I always tell people, like sometimes I'll be looking at my numbers and I'll be like, and I was like, that's like 45 seconds below. I fixed it already. Like it's a delay, you know?
Right.
And they're like, well, if you're not freaking out. And I was like, do I look like I'm freaking out?
Right.
But that's kind of my personality in the ORs. I'm very like funny, outgoing, you know, loud. We had a patient who was like, there's this girl in there and she just talked the whole time. It was me. I was in there talking the whole time. She was supposed to be awake, just to be clear. She was supposed to be awake. This was confused. There was anesthesia.
Local anesthesia,
Yes,
right?
exactly. But in general, like I was dreading that red, but I've definitely owned it more. And the part that was actually the hardest
I'm
to see
curious.
was that I am actually very red. I am
Okay.
from an unconscious level. I am
Really?
like almost straight red with a sprinkle of the other stuff.
Okay.
And so I've actually had to make a cognizant effort to be green, which means like caring and considerate.
Did you notice how her
So-
lip went up? Yeah. So Bobby, it's kind of hit on a lot of it, right? You
Okay.
got fiery red. Like she said,
And what's the name of this test again? Just
Insights Discovery. It's one of the main
Insights
tools
Discovery.
I use
Okay.
in
And
my
honestly,
workshops.
they give you a book.
okay.
Like I'm not giving you a book of you,
Okay.
and you read it, and you're like, "This is creepy."
Yeah,
Okay.
It is
you're
so
like, how did
accurate.
they know this?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah,
your
it's
hidden
one of
secret.
the most accurate,
Okay.
deepest ones. So you've got fiery red, task-oriented, getting things done. Sunshine yellow is kind of the extroverted feelers, so
Okay.
kind of loud, likes to talk.
Yeah.
But all about people. They're kind of the king and queen of brainstorming, innovation, types
Yeah.
like that. And then you flip into the other side of the model, which is Earth Green.
Yeah. Well,
Earth
the
Green, which is
red-
what you're
The
talking
red
about.
and yellows are your
Extroverted.
extroverts,
Yep.
and
Okay.
then your greens and
Yep. And
Okay.
then
Blues.
greens, Earth Green, which is caring, supportive. So it's introverted
Okay.
feeler. So they like people, but smaller scale,
Okay.
one-on-one
Okay.
type of
High
person.
green.
They're
I'm do my
almost
evergreen. I can feel it
harmonizers.
already.
Yeah, they are. There is show
Oh,
me
man.
you care.
See, I
Okay.
would say you're a red.
No
Yeah.
way. Oh, I am. You will. I'll let you finish blue first. No, I am the most anti-red. No,
really?
you guys would not believe it. No.
But maybe work Mickey is red.
Well, so I
Maybe.
will argue though, and I do think it
Maybe.
might
Yeah.
show up in different ways. I will
Okay.
argue that your personality will come out very similar in home, but again, it's all about preferences. We
Yeah.
Okay.
have all 4 colors,
What was
which
blue?
is blue. I know we can't leave blue out. Cool blue, introverted thinker. So they're all about details. They're motivated by getting it right. So those are the 4. But the good news about the whole model is we're not just all one thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We all have the ability to kind of flex between the 4. We just have more natural styles that we
Okay.
tend to lean.
And
towards.
there's like in betweenies. So my husband's actually purple.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
he's not blue. He's not red.
Well,
But the
mix.
older and more curmudgeon he gets, I swear he's swinging red.
We
Okay.
can
At
shift
work,
and
he's
change.
like
Mhm.
the chill, like he's like chill, and everyone comes to him.
Yeah.
And at home, he's like, "I told you to do that."
Yeah.
Oh my God.
So what do you find, I guess, relevant, like most business owners to be?
So it varies, and I would say so. There's strengths in all 4, and
Right.
there's no good or bad.
Okay.
It only kind of is. I will say typically, and the stats will show and support it, that a lot of business leaders will fall to be, I think they say 53% kind of fall in the fiery red,
Okay.
kind of cool blue aspects of things.
Okay.
But it doesn't mean that you can't be successful if you're in the other, because the majority fall in those other colors. If you're blue, or I'm sorry,
Okay.
if you're green or yellow, there are strengths and benefits that
Okay.
those organizations.
So you said red is fiery, right?
Yeah.
And I,
Yeah,
that's
that's the part that I didn't like. I didn't
Okay.
like that it sounds like we are just assholes.
Well, and it's
because
funny.
that's what it sounds
Well,
like.
it's hilarious. I mean, it's funny that so it's your perception,
That- I was
right?
gonna say, that's a
Yeah.
perspective,
Because
right?
I work with a lot of teams who will actually be like, they want to be red. I want to be, or they'll be like, give me the team of
Yeah.
reds because I want to get it all done.
Right.
And I'm
I
like,
want to be cool
and
and,
I'm like-
funny.
and I'm
I
like-
told you.
but I'm like, if you have a team of reds, you might have World War III.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it's not all
Yeah.
it's not
Here,
all
just lean back, sit on this couch, and let's figure out why you want to be a red.
So she's
Okay.
already self-declaring as Earth Green. I heard her. I heard her.
I
Right.
know.
Yeah.
The funny is that with our assessments, my team was like perfectly balanced. We had green, we had blue, we had red, and we had yellow. We had like equal percentages. However, one of the team members did lean pretty heavy into red, and you cannot have 2 reds do have a difficulty together.
It can be. Yeah, it depends. If
well,
you disagree, yeah.
Yeah.
right.
If you disagree on what needs to get done, yeah.
Yeah, disagree about what needs to get done, or like
Yeah.
who's in charge, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Actually.
That power.
Yeah.
power
Yeah.
And that's kind of the beauty of the model in context of particularly like the opposite types,
Yeah.
because if you can be aware of that, you can leverage each
Mhm.
other, because green and blue or green and red can work very well
No.
together if you
So-
understand it. if you
Yeah, so
understand each
my
other. Yeah.
right hand gal, which is Jackie, she's actually green. Now I will say that she's a harmonizer, so I would say that in that role, she didn't always want to deal with the conflict.
Okay.
So that can sometimes not be beneficial when that's supposed to be like the person who's kind of keeping shit under control
Okay.
when you're not there, right?
Yeah.
Mhm.
But I would say that for me, part of like, which is kind of like managing conflict or negativity in the workplace,
Yeah.
I will say that I've been told, we've all heard it, one drop of poison can spoil the well, one bad apple, da 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 da. And all it takes is not necessarily that people are bad, because again, I don't want to get into like people being good or bad, because I don't care, you're here to work, right?
Mhm.
Yeah.
But if somebody gets it in their head that these are the facts of the situation, they become disgruntled for whatever reason, whether fictional or
Not.
not,
Yeah.
right? I had said to my team when this all happened, I was like, listen, if these things were true, I would have been frustrated too. And I was trying to explain to our team that, so frustrations, again, this is one of my favorite sayings. I actually like repaired my mother and my relationship based on this, is that there's expectations and reality, right? We all have expectations,
Mhm.
but we can't change reality. We can only change our expectations. So if we continue to set these expectations in reality, all that comes out is frustration.
Absolutely.
So again, you've got to either learn to deal with your expectations or leave the situation, right?
Mhm.
So I learned that I had to stop expecting my mother to be a certain grandmother, a certain mother, because I was getting annoyed with her. And the truth is, I just accepted, like, this is who she is and this is who she's
Mhm.
going to be.
Mhm.
And I'm fine with it now. I would say that I have people pleasing tendencies. I don't want to disappoint people, but can go in pivotal points throughout my entire life where women do not like me. I feel like I just want them to like accept me for who I am and like know that anything I said was not intentional. It's, you know, I do struggle with people's emotions. Hence why I struggle with green. I'm just like, well, I don't have time to like.
You didn't know what I meant when I said that.
Or like you say to somebody, like if like let's say to somebody who's got body odor, like they got great curves and like they have body image issues. Well, you know, you're fucking hot. I'm sorry that offends you. That I wish I had like natural big boobs and booty. Like I'm sorry that I can't twerk because my ass is like, like, you know. So it's funny, stories of going above and beyond are like when to say no.
Yeah.
Do you remember the moments in which you told someone no the most, or the moments where you feel like you went above and beyond? Like, do you have those in your business and like in your successes and your failures? Like, did you ever tell someone no and then regret doing it? Or did you ever go above and beyond and then like literally had to bend over and take it up the ass?
Oh my
like,
gosh.
Oh,
Yeah.
Yeah.
I just went the above and beyond and take it recently with the sale, and I'll kind of cliff notes it. I had a listing and it was going to be a divorce situation, and I have dealt with quite a few of those. So I'm like, I got it. And the ex-husband was the one that was living in the property. My client, who was the wife, house is in her name, loan is in her name. It's just marital property. So he's involved. Couldn't buy the house, so we're selling it. Cool. And I went above and beyond. I'm talking about my husband and I pressure washed this whole house. I did the garage, the shed, the walkway. We did all the landscaping. I put down mulch. I spent a month preparing the home for market because he was stalling and packing up the inside. So I'm like, all right, well, while you do the inside, I'm going to get gorgeous on the outside. I'm replacing numbers that were down, buying decor for outside, the whole nine. We listed the property and went under contract very quickly within 4 days. We lost the contract because he stayed there for the home inspection, which you're not supposed to do, right? So lost the contract, and then crickets. I found out a lot of things that were going on that he was doing to turn off people. We ended up withdrawing the home for market a couple months later, and then like, okay, we're going to regroup, get some things done around the house, and we're going to list it. When he knew that that was about to happen, all of a sudden now he's serving my client like, I'm taking you back to court. And we are genuinely like, for what? End up taking her to court, and her lawyer reaches out like, we kind of need you. And I'm like, oh my gosh, are you kidding me? So I had to go to court. Fought being subpoenaed. I was like, you absolutely will not subpoena me. I have a reputation to uphold. This has nothing to do with me. Technically, I don't represent anybody right now. Everything is done. I have no agreement, but this is my client, still want to sell her house. So I had to go to court and testify, and we won our case. But it was just one of those things like, did I do too much and take too long? Because all the things that I did, the money that I spent, none of it matters now because I have to go list the house again in a few months. So it's just, I get the urge to take care of people and be extra, extra helpful and do a whole lot that they don't even ask me to do, which again is part of my job, right? I serve the public through real estate. But it was one of those like, did I need to, right? I'm like, did I need to do that? I ended up in court. Like, I never wanted to be able to say I had to go to court. Not like I got sued, but we won. She's getting some of her money back. I'm getting some of my money back, and he has to leave. So like, we really won. But it's just one of those things like, how do I stop myself sometimes from doing too much? Like, where does it just do what you're asked sometimes? And then if extra comes into play, do it then without just being like, I'm going to give you the world, even though you just asked me for like Chicago.
Right.
Like, I don't know. It's a hard balance sometimes. And then you have to say no as well. Like, no, we can't list it here. No, we can't do that. So I tell people no on a regular basis when it comes to real estate.
Yes, be able
the professional part of it in my job, like you have to.
People tend to believe their homes are worth more than they are.
Oh, 100%.
And I think that's one of the rules I learned from real estate agents is if somebody says that they're not taking a cent less than da-da-da, and that number is not even realistic,
I cannot work with you.
Walk away.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, I give out a lot of no's.
I would say I don't remember like any no's that I necessarily, maybe like a few here or there. I would say more like I definitely am one to bend over backwards and let people kind of run all over me. The older I get, the less I do
100%.
the more I get burned, the less I do it. And I would also say, trust your gut. That gut feeling is almost always gotten me burned because I assumed that I'm just being anxious about it. But I would say 9% of the time I was actually right. Yeah. And I should have reacted.
Trusting yourself more is super
trusting
important.
yourself more. Yeah. Especially, like I said, there's nothing that makes up for experience and time. Nothing.
Yeah.
You can be so smart, so beautiful, so whatever, and it's just experience. You know, I would say like I'm at a point where I feel like I'm at a burnout situation.
Yeah.
Where I had to bring in a business manager because I was like, I don't want to do this anymore.
Yeah.
I'm tired. I'm frustrated. I feel like I'm putting all this work in and I'm just like not getting where I want to go.
Well, I think picking and figuring out your business is figuring out what you're good at and doing what you're good at, and then delegating and outsourcing to people who have those strengths.
Well, I think the belief that there's I think work-life balance is actually bullshit. I think it's a bullshit situation. And the problem is we're setting this expectation for people. Like, oh, you need a work-life balance.
What is
Well,
that? What is that?
Wait
5 minutes.
What does it look like?
Wait 5
But
minutes.
the truth is that when you're at work, it doesn't, you can be at work and be good at your job, but you may still be, you know, dealing with text from your kids. You may still be thinking about what you're gonna make for dinner.
Yeah.
Then when you're home, you might be dealing with work stuff. So at the end of the day, it doesn't exist. And if we put this expectation out, women are more likely to be disappointed, more likely to be frustrated with their work, more likely to like exit the workplace, more likely to be divorced because they, you know, like have these expectations about what they thought this would be. Right?
I think one of the misconceptions with balance is just the wrong word.
Right.
Because balance assumes that everything's equal at all times.
Right.
And
Right.
it's not equal at all
Because literally
times.
anything aside from 50-50 is not balanced. Right.
But I think it's more about setting boundaries and prioritizing and figuring it out, and it's going to ebb and flow.
I'll never forget, probably 4 years into my career, I had a little lady in one of those aged wisdom moments that she's sitting there in my chair and we're having magic moment. And I said, well, will I ever have it all? And she goes, oh, honey, you can have it all, just not at one time. And that
honey just gave me chills. I knew she was about to drop some wisdom on you.
She did. And it stuck with me, obviously, through all these years.
Wow.
And that is still a statement that I can say that I still battle within myself, right? Because society says you can have it all. Look at Instagram. Look at this. I mean, it tells us we can have it all. I mean, you can have a podcast and you can have it all.
Yeah.
You still got to go home and make some hamburger helper,
I'm
Bobby
telling
Joe.
you.
You know what I'm
Right.
saying?
That's right.
And that is not all.
Yeah.
You know?
But I also find like my husband cannot understand where like the pressure. Right? He's not a woman.
It's as simple as that.
Yeah. But also like he hasn't run a business. He doesn't think about the things that girls need. I'm the one who's making sure the orthodontist is happening. I'm the one making sure their shots are up to date as if they're dogs. You know, I'm the one who has those extra things that I'm thinking about. And so, you know, I don't think he can understand that. And so for me at times, and part of why I wanted this episode was that I find leadership to be very lonely. I feel like sometimes I catch myself here and I'm like, who really understands what it is to be here? I want I want a team that loves me and I love them, but I can't be kicked around, so I have to be strong. But again, finding a balance there, right? We talked about that earlier. But then there's in those moments where you have to be the bad guy. And then you find yourself like, you know, like there's a separate text stream without you. Because, I mean, not just because bitches be crazy, but because you are the boss. You're not their friends.
You're the cat.
Yeah.
You're the
and
cat
think about,
or the mouse in the
Either
house,
or.
right?
Yeah.
And you want to be like the cool cat, right?
Yeah.
Not the one that
not the crazy cat that jumps in your face.
Yeah, literally.
You know?
Which is 95% cats.
Yeah.
I mean, Tom is cool, but Jerry's pretty cool too, right?
Yeah.
You know, and it's hard. I know we bonded talking about a lot of business stuff in the last year and how it doesn't take you down a spiral, you know, into just cracking is beyond, let alone that it might have already been scheduled at the age of 49, right? I say a good mental breakdown about every 10 years just feels right. As long as you
good.
as long
every
as
10 minutes at this point.
as long as you got the right support team, right?
Yeah.
You know, sitting on the floor, and I'm like, honey, you just have to sit there and just watch me.
Yeah.
He's like, I don't like that. And it's like, it's okay. I'm cool.
Especially if they're problem solvers,
You
right?
know?
Yeah.
My husband doesn't like, my husband, I would say he's actually my barometer. Like if I'm being crazy, he usually will check me.
Yeah.
If I'm being unreasonable, he usually will check me. But he also tends to be like, I think that bitch is crazy.
Right, right.
Oh, she's just passionate.
Yeah.
And here
he's
we
like-
are making excuses, but 5 minutes before that, we were like, crazy bitch.
Yeah.
You know,
Right.
I mean, you
Yeah,
know,
yeah.
I know
I think we do a lot of it to ourselves.
It's
just
true.
listening to all these conversations, right? The whole thing was like, why aren't we the head of these companies? And I think that it's because by default
yeah.
and by nature, no matter how bossy, and then by that I mean like the CEO, how much of a boss we want to be, it's hard to fight the nurture versus the nature of being a woman, because we are leaders in industries and we are leaders at home, even if we're not the breadwinners. I'm the breadwinner in my family as well. My husband has a great regular job and he will support us with the 401k, right?
Yeah.
Like that. He has the
Yeah,
benefits and the health insurance and all
absolutely.
that fun stuff. But it's like, okay, I have had a lot of those difficult conversations even before we got married, where I'm just like, listen, I need you to be hyper aware that if I asked you to log in to pay any bill right now, you would not be able to do so. If I asked you what somebody's social security number is, you do not know what it is. You don't know when their wellness visits need to be set. You don't know the passwords to any of the logins for anything. Your 2 bills are on auto pay, which is the mortgage, and the car insurance gets paid once every 6 months and you're done. You have credit cards now because, paying off a wedding, but that's kind of it. It's all on me, and I don't try very often to take it off of myself unless I have reached burnout and not to remind you that I do it all. But if we made it the norm to make home balanced, then the work-life part would kind of, I feel like, fall into play. If home was balanced and it was not 70-30 us, the grocery shopping, like, God bless, I don't know what this man's about to bring home from the grocery store. I usually get the phone calls or the FaceTimes, right? I'm just like, sometimes I just can't answer. Sometimes I just like, I don't know what response to give you because you live here. Look in the refrigerator. And I had the same thing with my oldest son's father, like, do you think that diapers and body wash and stuff, do you think that it appears in the home? If you've never bought it, you're not surprised where we just don't run out of things. It happens no matter if I had a good month or a bad month or I haven't had a closing in. I feel like we have a hard time delegating home.
Yeah.
And
Therefore, we try to
traditionally it's 70.
That's really what it is.
It's having an equal partner.
So I feel like that
Yeah.
we get caught up in those emotions when it comes to being the bosses, and because we are so wanting to do it all and show we can do it all and handle it all,
Oh, and the guilt.
that we can't. Yeah,
guilt
and
that
men are
comes
just
with it.
like, we need to fire those 4 right there. This department needs to merge with this one, and that has to happen here. And are we good? And we're like, okay, so if we fire 4 of them, they have 2 kids, one's in ballet, and she needs to do it. I just heard that they're about to get married, and I feel like I'm not mad that that's who we are because somebody has to care about people, but I definitely feel like that's part of the reason why we're not heading up more of those Fortune 500
Yeah.
companies like men are.
Yeah, so let's just summarize. Each of you take a minute, talk about how you have celebrated your wins, whether they're big or small, how you feel you can best support women, and any words of advice that you would give. And Kristen, I feel like you've been quiet, so why don't you start?
For me, I think, don't let the fear get in the way. There's a lot of people out there, at least that I've found in my last, 18 months. I know I'm still kind of early in my journey, but just that are willing to support you. So I have found, particularly there's been a lot of talk around the kind of support around spouses, but I found like my community of people is much larger, right? I've got a huge network of whether it be professional connections or personal relationships that have really helped me that I've been able to leverage. So, don't letting the fear of whether it be rejection or no's get in the way of going after it. From the perspective, in terms of, supporting women, and that I think, we hit on a lot of those points around, being aware of the biases that we have, and, helping others become aware of that and checking our own self as we go through it. And I think also, there's nothing wrong with saying, hey, trying to be a supporter of women businesses to help, those who are starting out and to be. So.
Yeah, I definitely feel like women need to support other women businesses. I agree with that.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Hence why we've supported each other. I know that's
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah, I guess, how about you, Lynn?
What advice? I think looking back and just realizing, one, that I'm not going to make everybody happy. Period. That's it.
It's impossible.
And that's a really, really hard thing to sit with. Yeah. And it's something that I feel like I've been really trying hard to come into that space, which means healing a lot of stuff from childhood, and past failures, perhaps with business and such, that you have to walk through so you can say, okay, because otherwise you're a bitch. Otherwise you're heartless. Otherwise you're this. You've seen it all. We've heard it all. And we've used it probably against others, sadly, in judgment. But I think that's probably one of the things I would tell myself is just to say that, hey, you're never going to get everybody's consensus.
Exactly.
Yes.
Yeah.
And turn the page. It's okay. The next people will show.
Yeah.
Right.
And I think that more like in business in general, I think we need people just to be like, you know what, this isn't the right fit for me.
Period.
I'm gonna go.
Yes.
Rather than like why do you
Blow
have
up.
to leave with a guns a-blazing and
You know
like
what?
throwing,
Yeah.
Because you and I had very similar stories
Yeah, I know. Every
with
time I
business.
story, I was like, oh my god,
and
I
it's,
love my
and it's
story.
crazy because I have these pieces of me, and I almost want to be unapologetic at times,
Yeah.
and that's the hardest space I think I'm trying to struggle with and find balance to at 49 in my industry is not in a bad way become unapologetic, just devout in my own skin, my feet, and this is my purpose, and it's okay.
Yep.
Yeah.
And I think that's, talking about, we talked about authenticity, right?
Yeah.
And leadership and, being, when you find your own voice and you become the power of that on a
Haters are going to hate, and they're going to be there. Look, they were cheering for Taylor, and then they were booing her, for God's sakes, either way, no matter how you felt about it. And that's, prime example.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
And so for me, that's probably been one of my biggest lessons is, and honestly, I guess the last thing to leave it with is entrepreneurship, especially when you are a woman. And then we'll go ahead and throw in some more icing and some more, stuff on the cake in the sense of being a minority or this or a single mom or add extra caveats, being white. Okay. Yes, you are white. It's you know what I'm saying? But when you throw all these different societal thought processes on these things and expectations, you're never going to have it all.
Yeah.
And it's okay.
I love the old lady.
It's
I know.
okay. Like, take my old lady
honey.
with you.
Oh,
God bless
honey.
her,
Is she good?
Yeah. Oh, I'm sure she is. I'm sure. But she lives strong.
She
you know
sure
what I'm
did.
saying?
And at some point, she had it all.
Yeah.
And
yeah.
I pass this on to everybody,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Love it.
But yeah, those are my takeaways.
How
this
about you,
past
Mickey?
year.
To realize that you have a business, you've accomplished something incredible, and to run your business like a business. That's the advice that I would give myself when I was first starting out. To not be like a glorified door opener, right? You own a business. You're not just somebody who passed the test and has access to these houses. So run your business like a business, and humble yourself. I was definitely the person who was like anti self-help books. Like, there is not a way that you could in this book tell me anything that I need to do for myself. I was always very smart in school. I was in honors classes. I was always advanced. My mom was a teacher. I did not struggle until I got older and the baby happened and the mom brain happened. I can't remember my left from my right, right? So I had to humble myself. Like, you actually don't know everything anymore. You're not in high school, Mickey, right? This is the big girl's world. You got big girl pants on. Life looks different now. So when I humbled myself and invested in my business and signed up for these groups and these programs, that's when my business grew. When I leaned on the women around me who were willing to share their time and their intellectual knowledge with me, even if it came at a cost, right? Understanding that you are not entitled to anybody's time or their knowledge is also a really big thing for me, right? So that's a big thing for me. And as far as like supporting women in business, I make it a point to seek out female mortgage lenders. I make it a point to seek out a female title attorney. Like, my whole crew for the most part is women. And I try very hard at times to make them women of color as well, because I know that maybe if I don't give you a chance, it'll be that much harder. I know that me sharing a small business to my page when I have a large following and a following that does interact well in this area, that matters. So it's being aware, the same way that I'm very outspoken on my page when it comes to political climate or what's right versus what's wrong, very black and white and clear as day. And being okay with knowing that you might ostracize some people, but all money is not good money. And I would much rather ostracize those that I feel that I cannot help, because I do have that very straight and narrow moral compass. And I do believe there is a very clear right from wrong. So know that no matter what type of business you're building, it is okay to be yourself from start to finish. And we have a big planet with a lot of people, and you will absolutely find your tribe, and they will be the ones that bring you comfort in your business, that don't have you going home crying at the end of the day because you have to work with somebody you just could not agree with, and you just feel, I don't know, like icky, right? Like you can avoid that for yourself in many ways. Sometimes it will be unavoidable, but because that's not your norm, it won't be an overwhelming thing for you. You'll kind of come to terms with it. So that's my biggest piece of advice. Just look for ways in which you can support women, even if it's something so small as a share, et cetera. It goes a long way.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I know that every single person here has supported me. And I definitely, I've always made an effort to support other women. I actually started the Injectory with a concept that I wanted the everyday woman. I wanted the working woman, the single mothers, the unmarried, married, whatever space you were in your life, that you could walk into this space and not feel it was pretentious, no snobbery, that you will never feel judged, and that we will accept you as you are. Because that for me is like how I I'm not saying that I don't judge people. Like, I mean, God, I'm human. But I definitely catch myself, and I feel that everyone's flawed. I will accept people for their flaws, and I just hope they accept me for mine.
For sure.
And if my flaws can be improved, I am open to hearing it. I want to know it. I don't always agree with everyone. Like, in healthcare, we have to accept everyone no matter how they come to us.
Right.
Doesn't matter what color, race, creed, politics. It does not matter. I will take care of you. I won't change how I deal with you, how I care for you. And that's how I approach my life. Because if you're a great person, like if you're a good soul, like that's what
it translates.
Yes, it translates.
Through.
Yeah.
And sharing your story is important too. You asked how we celebrate our wins. I make it a point to share that I 6 years ago was on SNAP and unemployment and beyond paycheck to paycheck. I remember when I had to count the change in my son's piggy bank to go to the gas station to get a can of food for my dog. And now I make 6 figures every single year, right? So sharing that, I'll get agents like, Mickey, oh my God, thank you so much for just sharing that little blip just now, because I was about to quit. And I didn't think I could do this. And I was shamed for keeping my 9 to 5, but you just said it took you 6 years before you quit yours again. Like, share your story. We all have something unique. I'm sure you get it from choosing or whatever led you to not having children and not having a spouse. Like, that is not the quote unquote norm. And I feel like you guys sometimes get it worse than most. It's a lot of pressure. It's not fair. And I get why people may or may not have kids. Like, I'm not even mad whether it was a choice or not. Listen, get you a good dog and you'll be okay. Right. But there's so many different pressures that we face, even in this conversation, you not having quite as much input because we're so focused on spouses and partners, et cetera. It's something that I was aware of from this conversation, and that it matters. So I just even felt the need to say it to you just now.
And that's
very good listener.
Sometimes
it's a personality thing, right?
Yeah. One of the things I didn't really hit on the win aspect of things, but it's like making sure you are celebrating those wins, because sometimes we beat ourselves up over the losses, and we really forget to celebrate those.
Yeah.
And,
we're women.
Yeah. I hope that that somebody hears something that helps them. This is why I'm here. I hope you all are here. You want to support other people. You want to hear other people's stories. We would love to hear other people who are out there who've either been affected by this, who learned something today. I love the F word. Thank you. You're welcome. But in general, I really do love supporting women. I do love having conversations. I do love to hear myself talk. I do. Same. Thank you.
The ADHD.
But I cannot say enough how thankful I am to have each of you here. I feel like we could stay here and talk forever. So we may have to do a part 2, maybe 6 months from now. It's like,
we can get some feedback.
Where are they now?
Yeah. Get some feedback, right? Questions that you have from the episode.
Yeah, exactly. Come at us. We want to hear it. What didn't we talk about? What did we not talk about enough? What did we talk too much about? But again, I want to thank everyone for joining us. Thank you for those who are willing to listen or watch. And thank you for my team for supporting us and keeping us on task. Highly manned it by ourselves today. But stay tuned for more exciting conversations, whether it's women leading, women mothering, women getting it on.